For exercise 12-5, we're going to be focusing on this video on how to lay out the drawing views. So what I've done here is I've drawn the top view and the front view for item number 2, which we're going to call the pin. And I have drawn, well, this is the pin right here. And I've also drawn the top view and the front section view for what we're going to call the base. The screws that exist in this one, I've just gone and drawn a very simplified representation of that so that I can use it in my assembly, but this is not a non-standard part. It's something that we can order, so it's not something that actually has to be placed or has to have detail views done for. And then here is my assembly view where I've got the pin in the base with the two hex head screws. In this example, I wanted to ensure that my hatch patterns were opposite between the two parts so that you could clearly identify which part is which in the section views. To do that, I just put in the same hatch pattern and then I clicked on this one and changed the angle to 90 degrees. What that gives me is that gives me the opposite pattern. So at this point, I can put in the sheets that I need. I can go through and create all of the subsequent information. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my layout and I'm going to rename this sheet 1. I'm going to delete layout 2 because I'm not using it, and then I want to go to move or copy, create a copy, move to end, rename that to sheet 2. And then move or copy, move to end, create a copy, and we'll call this one sheet 3. Now on my sheet 1, what I want to put in here is my list of material and my assembly view. So I'm going to type in MV, enter, and I'm going to draw a viewport over here. We're going to double click inside the viewport and then zoom in on my assembly view. I'm going to change my scale to 1:1. Double click outside the viewport. Make sure that when I click back on it, make sure that the scale still says 1:1, and I'm going to click on lock. And then I'm going to change that to my viewports layer. At this point, I can go ahead and go to my annotate tab and put in the table. I want 4 columns, and giving myself 2 extra spaces at the end of this, I need 5 rows. So we'll go ahead and say OK to that and left click to insert this. So this is going to be our list of material. And then if you tab, you can just go to each next cell. So we'll go ID, quantity, name, material. So part number 1, we'll call the base. It lists the material in here as doesn't list the material, so we're just going to go with steel for everything. Well, the name for this one is the base, and the material will go with steel. Item number 2, we're going to say 1 required. Let me go back up here and change that to 1. This is going to be the pin, and we're going to call this steel. And then item number 3, 2 required. The name of this one is going to be an M6 by 10 hex head screw. And we're going to say that that is steel as well. I want to click in here and change this to top center, and we'll change this one to top center as well. Now I'm going to shrink down the rows because I want everything to fit nice and neat on my sheet here. And when you're shrinking down the rows, always shrink down from left to right, because if I expand this one, it sometimes does some weird stuff and it kind of makes other cells collapse and stuff. So just start from left to right. It'll go a lot smoother. So now I do want to take and put this table on my text layer. So we'll go back to the Home tab and put this on text. And then I can go to dimension, and we're going to call out our parts now. So this piece right here is part 1. This piece right here is part 2. And then this piece right here is part 3. So there we have our assembly view and our parts list for this particular object. So now I can go to sheet 2, MV, enter, draw my viewport. I'm going to double click and zoom in on the base and change that to a scale of 1:1. Double click back outside my viewport and then just stretch it so that everything fits in here nice and neatly. Lock my viewport and put it on the viewports layer. Now I can actually go through the dimensioning process for this and move on to my next sheet, which is going to be the sheet for the pin. So MV, enter, draw the viewport, double click, zoom in on the pin. Change the scale to 1:1, double click outside the viewport, adjust it, put it on the viewports layer, lock it. Now at this point, everything is ready for the dimensioning. The one thing that I will call out on this particular sheet, the details inside of here get a little bit hazy, so I want to explain that if you add the 21.5 and the 24, you get this straight section right here, which is the 22 diameter section. The section of 28, which is right here, the 28 millimeter section here is actually the M20 threaded section. The bottom section right here of 4, it doesn't actually give a diameter for. So what we can use is we can estimate that because the top piece has a 3 millimeter by 45 degree chamfer, that diameter is 3 millimeters smaller than the text that we use, or the thread we use. So if we used an M20 here, then we can make this diameter here 17. And then this is just the standard 118 degree drill point. It's not 100% imperative that you have the drill point shown in this particular view, but it's the easiest way to get a 118 degree drill point drawn into your drawing is if you draw a line coming off of here at a negative 31 degrees, just draw it out a little bit and then mirror it, and then you can trim off the excess piece to get a 118 degree drill point, which is a standard drill point for most machine drawings. But that being said, once you go through and dimension this, then what you'll be left with is you'll be left with the detail view for your pin, the detail view for the base, and then your list of material and your completed assembly view.